Well, hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. This is Mark Ittleman, Speech Language Pathologist, and welcome. Welcome to the teaching of talking, and welcome to our little meeting, our little classroom, where I will be sharing with you some wonderful concepts that I think you ought to know. I've spent a whole lifetime working on mastering these skills in speech therapy. And the reason why I'm doing this class is because I want you, to learn all about this. Hi, Virginia. I want you to learn about speaking difficulties so that you can improve your speaking. Or I want you to learn about speaking difficulties so that you can become an expert at helping your loved one speak better. So that's why I'm doing all of these. And so we're having a lot of nice people coming in. I see Virginia Bruce, and I see Lan O'Lynn, and I see, don't tell anybody, but my wife is here. So I've got to be on my best behavior, okay? And so I'm really glad you're here. And we're just kind of warming up. People are coming into the room. My name is Mark Ittleman. I'm a speech language pathologist. And I've worked in some of the best rehabilitation hospitals in America. I had a private practice. And I've been doing this work, this speech therapy, for 45 years. So, and I love it. I love it. And you'll learn to love it too, because I'm giving you a class right now so that you can learn to love it. You can learn to improve your speaking. You can learn to improve the speaking of your loved one right at home. And that's what this is all about. Because I got real tired of giving people pink slips when I'd work with them at the hospital. They'd say to me, Mark, you got to get rid of Mr. So-and-so. You got to get rid of Mr. Smith. And I said, well, wait a minute, he's not done. Oh, yeah, he is. Yeah, we got to let him go because, if we don't, Medicare may not pay us for his therapy, So, I got tired of hearing that over and over again. And tonight, I'm going to be sharing with you really great information about speech, wonderful information about speech that most people don't even realize, okay? But I realize it because I'm specially trained in it, but most people don't know squat about speech, other than you just let your tongue start going and you get into a conversation with whomever, and everything just happens automatically, because that's the way speaking is, isn't it? Yeah, we just speak to each other and we say hello and we tell them about what's happening and things like this. And we don't even have to think about it. But those with aphasia are different. They were once able to speak and speak well. And then something happened. They had a stroke. And they had aphasia. Hey, Tony, how are you? Good to see you, Tony. Really, good to see Tony and Helen Maxwell. Hi there. And you're from Australia. Oh, my goodness. We'll have to speak to you, Helen, about Australia, because Mark and I would really like to come and visit Australia. That's in our list. And so maybe one of these days we could set up a class or something in Australia and teach there. But it's great to see everybody. We've got Virginia, and we've got Maka, and we've got Helen, and we've got Tony, and we've got a whole lot of other people coming on the call. But a lot of people kind of drag their feet. I used to have a professor who used to 5 minutes after class got started, he'd close the door and he'd lock it. And you know something? people made it to class. So anyway, I welcome all of you this evening. We're going to first start out talking about speaking and about what a speech therapist looks at when he's evaluating or screening a person with aphasia. And these are the same things that I want you as a care partner to look at, or whether you're a speech pathologist or whether you're a care partner. Why don't you all tell me right now what you are, okay? Whether or not you're a care partner or whether or not you're a therapist. If you just kind of type that in, that way I can look. You know, it's a lot easier seeing your comments. Tonight I'm working off a computer because I'm not out in the woods, but I'll be back in the woods tomorrow. But right now I'll be able to read your comments that you have. And I was just wondering what kind of background you had. Now, are all of you hearing me okay? Can everybody just say yes or no? I just want to make sure that our signals are good and you can hear me okay and you can see the signal. Can you do that? Would you all give me some feedback, please? I don't see any feedback yet. Okay. Gosh, I want to make sure that that we're on okay. Can someone give me? Can somebody tell me if you're hearing me okay? Okay. Now we're doing okay. We're getting a yes, and we're getting hi, and we're getting. There's Debbie, and there's Malka and Diana. Oh, good. I did a lot of nice interaction with Diana the other day. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm glad you're hearing me. So now I don't have to worry about that. All right. So we're going to talk about speech, and the reason why I do this is because I want you to learn. I want you to learn this stuff because I want you to be really, really good and understand this. Because you know something, your partner, if you are a care partner or a caregiver or a whatever you call yourself, a wife or a girlfriend or whatever you are, this is all so critical for you to understand because, you know, isn't speaking like the most important thing in the world just about, isn't it? Talking is. I don't know what I would ever do if I lost the ability to speak. Wow. It's a serious thing. Okay, and so I want you to learn all about speech. And what we're going to first start out with is what a speech therapist looks at when he or she evaluates speaking. Now, you got to remember that speech therapists are like artists, okay? They're all different. They all look different. They all sound different. They all use different methods. So just remember that just because one therapist may be great, that doesn't mean all the rest of them are. And the same goes in the opposite way, that just because one wasn't so good, or maybe two weren't so good, that doesn't mean to give up on speech therapy altogether. Because you know something? There's somebody out there just for you. There's a therapist out there just for you. But in the event that you're not looking for a therapist, in the event that you want to do this on your own, you know, kind of like Home Depot. We have a Home Depot in the United States, and it's for do-it-yourselfers. And that's the way I think speech therapy can be done, okay? That's the way speech therapy can be done with people who have aphasia, because it takes them a long time to get over what it is they have. Now, if it's a mild problem, it may not take so long. But if it's severe to profound, it could take months. It could take even years, okay? So that's why I want you to kind of know this and kind of understand it. All right. So when we look at a person who has aphasia, one of the first things I look at is when I look at them, it's like I'm looking at you right now. I want to know, you know, is there anybody home here? Because, you know, some people, like I think I told you about Leo yesterday, when I first came in to see him and started doing therapy with him, he'd kind of go like this, and he'd kind of go up into a ball, and then he'd go to sleep. You don't know what that does to your self-concept when you go in there and you go to try to help a guy talk, and he doesn't want to talk with you at all. Okay, it just means often that you haven't established rapport yet. You haven't established rapport yet. And, even you wives or partners, you've got to establish rapport. Even if you're married, and even if you've been married for 20, 30, 40 years, you have to establish rapport around speaking. Because you know something? There are a lot of people, now listen closely now, there are a lot of people who've been to speech therapists, and maybe they've done cognitive exercises, or maybe they did things. I got to tell you this story. I got to tell you this story. Okay, I got to tell you this story. All right, the story is that I got a letter from a lady, and then I called her up and we talked. She says, I'm so mad at my speech therapist. And I said, well, why are you so mad at the speech therapist? And she said, well, she brought out a hairbrush, and she said to my husband, say hairbrush. And she said, my husband has no hair. And then she said, the speech therapist then wanted to work on another bathroom item. So she brought out a toothbrush, and she said, say toothbrush. And she said, but my husband doesn't have any teeth. And then she said, she started talking about football. And the lady said, my husband hates football. Okay? So when you're dealing sometimes with a therapist who's not entering your world and doesn't take the time to find out about your world, what's important, yeah, some of you get that, don't you? Okay, so there are some therapists who don't take the time to find out what's important about your husband or your wife, or who don't even open up their eyes and see that the guy doesn't have any hair, or doesn't really notice that he has no teeth, okay? So some people who've been in therapy don't want any more therapy. They refuse. I got to tell you this story, okay? I got a million of them, but you know something? I'm sharing with you, and I'm teaching you, and this is what like Plato or Aristotle used to do when he'd walk with his students in the woods. He'd tell stories, but you know something? His students would really learn. They really would. And now I hope I can remember where I was now. Let's see. Well, it's gone. It's gone. But maybe somebody can remind me where I was. Okay. But that's not important. Oh, yeah. So a person might not want to go back to therapy anymore. Okay. So here's the story. There was a woman who wanted me to work with her husband privately. And so one afternoon she calls me on the phone. And she says, Mark, I'm at the university speech clinic. I said, yeah. And she said, my husband won't get out of the car. And I said, what do you mean he won't get out of the car? She said, he won't get out of the car. He doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to go. Can you speak to him? Can you tell him to get out of the car and go see the students there? I said, no. I said, don't you understand that he doesn't want to work with them? And he'd been to them a couple of times, but he didn't want to work with them. Now, why didn't he want to work with them? Well, sometimes it's the method that a therapist uses. And sometimes the fact that the therapist never even bothers to establish rapport with that person, find out what his interests are, and talk with him. And so one of the things that you need to do, and one of the things that I do, and if any of you are therapists, what you need to do is you need to don't be in such a big hurry to evaluate a person with all your fancy tests. Okay? Don't be in a big hurry. Find out who the guy is. What's he up to? What did he do for a living? What does he love to do? What does he hate to do? Okay? Do you have any kids? You know? What turns him on? Does he have any hobbies? You know, I had a patient this morning I work with, and we talked photography for a good part of the visit, and we talked in single words and phrases. And when we started working together, he had no speech at all. And we were talking in phrases and sentences. He just got back from vacation. And he and his wife were both telling me that he took 50 pictures. So I said to him, how many pictures did you take? And he said, 50 pictures. So we talked about the pictures he took and where he ate and what he ate. And we talked about the fact that they took his 2 kids to the beach. And the fact that his 2 kids, they had to get a bigger apartment to stay in during their vacation because of the 2 kids. And they invited another person and they went to the beach. And we just had a great conversation. And that's what this therapy is about. But it's not about just having a conversation. It's about learning how to stimulate a conversation. So when we evaluate speech, we have to first establish rapport. Do you got that? Now, what I'm going to recommend to all of you is that if your husband or your wife or whoever the person is that you're working with, if they don't want to work with you, it's nothing personal. It's probably just because you just don't know what to do. And, you know, most caregivers don't really know what to do to help their loved ones talk. That's why you're here with me, because I'm going to show you what you need to know in order to do that. And one of the things you need to know is you need to understand speech, which I'm going to share with you. You need to understand rapport. You need to understand the kinds of things that you're going to talk about and now you're going to talk about. So the other thing I want to know, besides establishing rapport, is can they focus? Can they pay attention? Do they pay attention? Because there are some people that don't pay attention. They're just out in la-la land, okay? And then the other thing I want to know is there a connection? Is there a connection between us? Now, you know, the literature tells us that we can size a person up in about 5 seconds. That we know immediately, in 5 seconds, mind you, if we're going to like a person or not. That's weird, isn't it? Okay, but it's true, all right? So what we need to do, and what we want to make sure is that if we're going to work with anybody who has a speaking difficulty, that we establish rapport. We want them to like us. We hope that they can pay attention. And they will pay attention, because you're not going to do any of this stupid stuff saying, what's this? It's a screwdriver. Or what's this? It's a shaver. Or what's this? It's a toothbrush. Or what's this? A brush, even though you have no hair. We're not going to do that stuff. Okay, that's not what speech therapy is. What speech therapy is being able to get into a conversation. Okay, now here's the next thing we want to know. And I hope some of you, if you can take some notes, I think it'll be real helpful. But if you're not taking notes, that's okay too. All right, So the other thing I want to know, and what you want to know too, okay, this is something you need to know now, is the person you're going to be working with, are they a social person, or are they a non-social person? Now you might be going, hey, Mark, what are you talking about? A social person versus a non-social person. A person who's social, likes to talk, likes to interact with people, has the gift of the gab, can talk to just about anybody, and does talk to just about anybody. Have you ever seen these people? They could be in the grocery store, they could be anywhere, and 5 seconds after they see another person, they're talking with them. I used to know a guy like that. Wherever we'd go, he'd get people talking to him in about 2 seconds. So that's a social person. And then you have the person who is like a non-social person. Now, one of the first girls I ever dated, her name was Sharon, okay? And she was probably one of the nicest looking girls in our class, all right? And so I took her to the, I think it was called the Waldorf School. It was a private school, even though I didn't go to it, but they had a dance, and you had to pay like $6, and you had to get a corsage for your date. Okay, so I invited Sharon, and she went with me. Man, I felt like, So I go to pick her up, and she opens the door, and she's looking beautiful. I mean, like, for a guy in, I think, 7th grade, 8th grade, I mean, some of you may remember. And so I go to pick her up, and I look at her dad over there, and he's behind the newspaper. And so I walk into the room, and he looks over the newspaper and looks at me, and then he drops down behind the paper. The guy never said a word. Not one word. Now that's what I would call a non-social person. Just so you understand the distinction, okay? And then, so had a great time at the party, had a great time at the dance. Oh, it was wonderful. So I had to bring her home by 11 o'clock. So I bring her home. I forgot whether or not I kissed her goodnight. I think I did, but it was just a kiss on the cheek. But anyway, she opens the door, and there's her father still over there at the kitchen table reading the paper. And then he kind of looks over and then goes behind the paper. Doesn't say a word. Not one word. Not one. All right? So that's a non-social person. And I'm glad you all like this, because I believe that if you're going to learn, you got to have fun learning. And I don't like putting people to sleep, because, whenever I used to go to a church service or a synagogue service or whatever it was, if the guy wasn't very good, I'd be asleep in like 5 minutes. And my wife used to elbow me all the time. But I don't know, just for some reason, if somebody's not very interesting, I'm out of here. I might be in the chair, but I'm gone. All right. So when we evaluate a person with aphasia, and these are things you need to know, because if you've got one of these people who wasn't very social and didn't talk very much, then you're only going to be stimulating maybe 1, 2, or 3 words at a time, and that's going to be it. You're not going to have to teach him the Gettysburg Address, okay? I promise you. And you won't have to teach him how to memorize Bible verses either, because chances are he's only going to want to talk in 1, 2, or 3 words. And I've worked with people like that, and that's about all they want to say. But they want to be able to say some things, okay? So that's the other thing you want to know. You want to know if the person's social or if they're not social. If they are social, then their motivation to talk is going to be higher, usually. But there are some people, too, who aren't very social, who still want to be able to talk, but you don't have to teach them to say many words because they just aren't natural talkers. So sometimes in therapy, when you have a therapist and they notice that the guy isn't very social, sometimes they'll still try to, work with them on long sentences and, all this other kind of stuff. And that'll turn that guy right off in a minute. So, I've worked with some of them and I just say like one word. I say, "Hi, how are you? You fine? Good." And that's the speech therapy, because that's how they normally talk. And we try and find out the kind of talkers they were, and that's how we address their speaking in therapy. It only makes sense. And that's why the teaching of talking method works, because it's common sense. You don't have to work with all of this craziness, all of these workbooks and all of these cognitive stuff that drives a person nuts. I had somebody in the group here who said that they were working with her husband on some cognitive stuff, and he was like a 2 out of 10. It meant he didn't like it at all. He didn't like therapy at all, and I don't blame him. I'd hate it too if I had to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. I want to have a good time. I even taught a guy how to cuss one time. That's what he wanted to learn. Okay? So you find out about the person, what they want, what they like to say. And only a care partner knows the words that their husband or their wife like to use. So one of the first things I ask a care partner is, what are some of their favorite expressions? And there's some real dillies, let me tell you. There's some really dillies. But you key a person into some of their favorite expressions, and they'll probably be able to say it much, much easier and much faster and learn it much faster, because these are the words that they always used. Okay? Okay, so we now covered rapport, how important it is, and we covered whether or not a person's social or whether or not they're not social. And, I'm so glad you all are responding. I'm seeing all these nice little smiles and things like this. I'm so glad of this. And this is the type of therapy I always wanted to learn. But nobody was out there to teach me this stuff. The college professors didn't know this stuff. And what they were teaching the students sometimes was not kind of this stuff, So you got to find somebody who's sometimes got a little common sense. Okay. So social versus non-social. Now, the next thing is, does the person attempt to communicate? That's what I would want to know. If a person attempts to communicate, that's good. That's good if they attempt, because that means that there's a desire there. And remember that one of the key things I always look for is desire. Desire on the part of a person with aphasia. How strongly do they want to talk? But you know something? Many of them come kicking and struggling into the speech therapist's office, and even came, they'd even come into my office like that. They didn't want to do anything. And one time I said to a guy, "Man, you're a damn sorry sight." And he went, "What?" I had to get a rise out of him. And, immediately we got into rapport, because we talk to each other like normal people do. You know how it is when somebody's got an attitude with you. There's a few things you can say that'll kind of get underneath that person. Well, it's the same thing in any kind of communication situation, okay? And you want to say, look, I don't care if you're here or not. And if you want to get up and go, you can go, but I'm going to teach you how to talk. Okay? I don't know who you've been to before, but I can help you talk, and I'll show you right now. So if you don't think I can help you talk, I'm gonna do some things with you right now. Then I'm gonna show you that I can help you talk. And I'll tell you what, if you can say a couple of words with me, will you stay? Well, most of them say, well, yeah, okay, well, let's get to work. And that's what we'll do sometimes, even before an evaluation, because I'm going to want to know if the guy or the woman can imitate. Okay? Now, that's another one of the key components of an evaluation. Can they imitate? Can they repeat words after you? Now, if they can't repeat a word, then you have to make it simpler. So if they can't repeat a word, you want to see if they can repeat a vowel. Because, I'm working with a guy right now who couldn't say any vowel, couldn't say any consonant, couldn't say any word. I had to start teaching him how to say vowels first. Because remember, a consonant and a vowel make up a word, like the word no. Or the word pee. Now that's an important word. And that has a consonant and that has a vowel. Okay? So I want to know, and you want to know, if the person you're working with can repeat a consonant or a vowel. I would start with the vowel first. If they can't say a word, if they cannot say one word, and there are many who can't, okay? So what you have to do is you have to make it simpler. You make it simpler. The whole process of speaking is if a person can't do X, then you drop it back a notch and you make it simpler. And if they still can't do that, well, you make it simpler still, or simpler still. So if a person can't say a sentence, I want to know, can they say a word? If they can say a word, great. If they can't say a word, then I want to know, can they say a vowel? Or can they say a consonant and a vowel, like no, or P, or you, or me, or my, or I? You see? You just have to keep chunking them back. If they can't do this, then you have to look for an easier way, easier way, easier way, easier way, easier way. Okay. So we want to know, do they desire to communicate? And when they communicate, what happens? What happens when they try to speak? That's what I want to know. And I can be in the grocery store. I can be just about anywhere. And my ears are like radar. I can hear a person talking from 100 yards, and I know immediately if they've got a problem and what kind of problem it is. And I want you to be able to know that too, so that you will be an educated consumer and you won't have to rely on Medicare or insurance or anything else like that. Because it just, with a problem like aphasia, the insurance is just not going to handle it. It's just not. Not in Australia, not in America. I don't care where you are. They just can't do it because they can't afford it. And they don't want to anyway. And I read all these posts on Facebook. Oh, why can't America pay for aphasia therapy? Why can't the insurance company do blah, 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 blah? But you know something? When you say to them, hey, listen, I can show you how you can help your loved ones speak, you know what? A lot of them, it kind of goes right over their head. And we have to be proactive in our society because, people aren't going to do it for us. In these times, and I'm sorry to say this, everybody wants everything. Gimme, 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 gimme. But most of us know that back in the day, man, you wanted something, you had to go work for it. You had to figure out a way to get it. Or you had to do it yourself. Now I'm out here in Middletown, New York, and this was all farmland. And you know something? The people who own these farms and raise the cows and all of that, they could do anything. They could fix the tractor. They could fix a flat tire. God, could you imagine that? Fixing your own tire? I mean, they could do just about anything. Very self-sufficient. I wrote an article, I don't think I published it yet, but it was on you know who said, I'm not going to give you the fish. I'm just not going to give you the fish. But I'll teach you how to fish. I'll teach you how to fish. And that's what we're doing here. We're teaching you how to fish, okay? All right, so let's talk about other aspects of speech, okay? There's something called anomia, and that is when you're in the supermarket and you see some lady over there that you know and you can't remember her name. Does that ever happen to you? You know, you're in the supermarket and you're wheeling around your cart, and all of a sudden you see this woman down there, and you go, what's her name? 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 And then her name doesn't come to you, and you like hide out. You don't want to see her, because if you saw her, you might she might realize that you don't really know her name, or you might see her and then you'll say, hi, how are you? And then she'll know, and she'll probably know your name, but you won't know hers, and you'll feel terrible because you didn't remember her name. But that's when anomia is. Anomia is when you're searching for a word and guess what? It disappears. Boop. Does that happen to you? Sure it has. Okay, and if it has, put yes. Type in yes. I want to know that, all right? So that's anomia. And then you have a person who has jargon. Now, jargon is another type of speech characteristic where a person just rattles on and you don't know what the heck they're saying. But they think they know what they're saying, but you don't know what the heck they're saying. That's called a jargon aphasia. We could call it a jargon aphasia, because most of the people here, I think, are non-technical. All right, so a jargon aphasia, they're difficult to work with sometimes. They're more difficult to work with than people who can imitate. And the people we want to be able to work with can do two things. Here they are. The first thing is they've got to be able to understand what you're saying to them. They have to be able to comprehend or understand what you say to them. Now, there's some people who have aphasia who can't do that in the beginning. It's called a receptive aphasia. A receptive aphasia is when you say something to a person and they don't know what the heck you said. And an expressive aphasia, especially a jargon aphasia, is they'll try to say something and the words will come out, but you don't know what the heck they're saying. That's a jargon aphasia. And then there's others like who have Broca's aphasia. Broca's aphasia is they'll go, they can't initiate speech. They're having difficulty initiating speech. They can't initiate it by themselves. And there are ways that you can help them initiate speech that are non-confrontational, that are indirect, and let them save face. And that's wonderful, okay? And then there's an apraxia. Okay, an apraxia is a motor problem. Now, do you ever have a problem with your motor? Okay, there's a motor, and there's a motor in your mouth. In fact, some people call it, other people, motor mouth, okay? Well, there is a motor in there. Let's see it. There's a motor in there, all right? And you think about it, there's a motor in there, and it's attached to your tongue, and it's attached to your throat, and it's attached to your lips, and it's attached to your teeth, and it's attached to your tongue and your throat, all right? And that motor is working really, really good most of the time for you and me, isn't it? We don't have any trouble talking, okay? It just comes out, and it comes out well. But for some people with aphasia, it's like the motor is broken down. It's like trying to run on 2 cylinders rather than 4 cylinders. The tongue doesn't move so fast. The lips don't move very fast. Nothing works very fast. They have trouble walking. They have trouble talking. So sometimes the motor here has a problem. Now with aphasia, your person that you're working with could have a motor problem. They could be able to speak and speak really, really well, or know the words they want to say and be able to say sentences, but the motor doesn't work so well and everything comes out like mush. That's a motor problem, okay? So with speech problems, with aphasia, now follow me now, you can have a motor problem. You know, I have trouble with this in front of a computer because everything's like backwards. All right, here, which one is it? Which one? Boom, 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 boom. Well, anyway, a motor. Okay, here it is. Here's my left hand. So the motor problem is here, and this is where articulation occurs. Okay, and you've got to have fine coordination. And your tongue and everything in your mouth have to work very well and have to work accurately. And if there's an aphasia, that whole process sometimes doesn't work so well. And that's called a motor speech problem. And we talked about that kid I used to work with when I was in training who had the apraxia. He couldn't move the tongue and the lips and everything the way he wanted to. And everything he said came out like mush. Gosh, if I had a chance to work with that kid now, there'd be no problem at all working with him. It's a wonder what 45 years of experience can do for you. You know what I mean? Anyway, okay, so that's a motor speech problem. The other part with aphasia is the loss of the words. The words don't come. It's like an amnesia. The words disappear on you. You go to say something and the words don't come out. That's called an expressive aphasia. Where a motor problem is where the speech sounds all discombobulated because the tongue isn't working well and nothing in there is working very accurately. So there's the motor speech problem, and then there's the language problem. That is remembering how to say a sentence, or remembering how to say a phrase, or even remembering how to say a word. So you can have anomia. That's the term, anomia. When you go to think of a word, when you're in the grocery store and you see Mrs. What's-Her-Face over there, and you can't remember her name, that's anomia. And what aphasia for many people is either the motor problem or the language problem where the words disappear. Now, when you're in that grocery store and you see that lady and you can't remember her name, just multiply that times 100 or maybe by 500, and then you'll understand what aphasia is to the person who's having difficulty recalling and saying words. He goes to say, you know, he wants this, and he goes, oh, yeah, I know what this is. Okay, what is it? But he can't bring it up. That's why when you learn how to do the teaching of talking procedure, you'll be able to help him say that every time he drinks water. You'll be stimulating that word in either a single word, a phrase, or a sentence every time he takes a drink of water, and then maybe he'll learn it that way. Because there's something called mass practice, and that is that if you work on anything and you do it over and over and over and over and over again, well, chances are you learn it. Now, just think about Tiger Woods. You know, he used to spend hours and hours and hours and hours, or Gretzky, Wayne Gretzky, or famous pitchers, or any of these people. You know, they used to do something over and 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 over again. And they got to be really great at what they did. And I think a lot of people with aphasia, many, not all, that they can learn how to speak, some of them limited, some of them a lot better, at all different degree levels, but it takes that intensity. It almost takes the intensity of a world-class athlete, of an Olympic athlete. That's the kind of training it takes. Now, I want to just say to all of you on this call here, that's what it takes. Okay? That's what it takes. So you've got to be willing, okay, to be like that parent who would take the kid to ice skating lessons for like 15 years, almost every day after school, or the gymnast, or the hockey player, or the baseball player, or pitching in the backyard every day after school, even when it was snowing in the backyard. That's what it takes. Doesn't take twice a week, go to speech therapy, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. It's not going to cut it. That's why I'm spending time with you, because I want you, after our time is up with each other, I want you to decide if you've got the moxie, if you've got the guts, if you've got the wherewithal, if you've got the motivation, if you've got the desire to do what it takes to help a person talk again. And these are some of the things that it takes. Then there's another speech difficulty, and that's called Dysarthria, and that's slurred speech. Now, I had a buddy in high school, his name was Jerry, and may he rest in peace. Jerry liked to, drink Canadian Club. And, kids, we were all kids once. And anyway, so sometimes Jerry used to sneak and get a bottle of his father's liquor. And he'd go in the backyard and he'd drink that. And then when he'd come out, his speech would sound like this, where his speech was really slurred. And this is what a dysarthria is. Slurred speech, severely slurred speech. That's another motor speech problem that you can also help a person speak much, 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 much better once you learn some of the fundamentals. Okay. The other thing you want to watch, besides whether or not your person has a motor speech disorder here, or whether it's words and language, is the voice. With aphasia, there are lots of people who have voice difficulties. One of them is hoarseness. Now, if a person is hoarse a lot, chances are they also have swallowing difficulties, because that's another problem with those who have aphasia. And how do you know if a person may have a swallowing problem? Well, if you know a person, or you love a person, or you're a caregiver or care partner, or whatever you want to call them, then when they go to drinking something, if you find that they cough a lot or clear their throat a lot, chances are they may have a swallowing difficulty. And if they do, a red flag should go up, because that means that possibly sometimes when they drink, liquids escape down into the airway. And one of the ways you know if they could be aspirating, or what we call penetrating, is when they're drinking and you're having a meal with them and they may be drinking, they may be clearing their throat a lot, or they might be coughing a fair amount. Now, if they're doing that, they need to probably have a swallowing test, because those kinds of things can lead to pneumonia. And that's another problem that goes with the motor speech problems. Motor speech problems when speech isn't clear. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. Good. Now, some of these little things that I'm just sharing with you, you can take to the bank. I gave a lecture one time. She said, my husband does that all the time. Well, she took her husband to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, and he ordered a swallowing test, and he was aspirating, and he was sneezing a lot, and his nose would run. Okay? So these are some of the symptoms you have to watch out for with those who have aphasia. Swallowing difficulties, or a runny nose when they eat, or clearing the throat. Yeah, you all know what I mean. You all know what I mean. And there's some very simple things that you can do to help improve that too. Okay? So these are all things that I want you to know so that you can be an educated consumer, and so that you can take care of business. Because you may be out there somewhere like in Australia, or you could be who knows where on this planet, and you have no clue about that stuff. And there might not be a speech pathologist within 100 miles, for all you know. Okay. So the voice and swallowing problems are things you want to be on the lookout for. So a couple of things. I want to make sure that time is just flying. Well, let me get to the bottom line here, okay? Who's a good candidate for speech therapy? A good candidate is somebody who's motivated, who's social, who wants to talk even if they're non-social, but they want to talk. People who are motivated. But you've got to make sure that you don't step on their toes, that you know what you're doing if you're going to help them. Because most caregivers and care partners don't know what the heck they're doing, and they just get their person frustrated and angry and the whole business. And I don't want that to happen to you. So what we need is the people who are good candidates for you to help them. They can imitate a vowel. They can imitate like a number if you go 1 or 2 or 3. Or if you can say some single syllable words like hi, bye, yes, no. Real simple stuff. Okay? If they can imitate that, good. If they can't imitate that, then try a vowel. Try some of the vowels. Can you say A? Can you say E? Can you say O? You want to see if they can imitate you with the vowels. Now, if they can't, then you make it even easier still. You say, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? So if they can't imitate a vowel, can they imitate the gesture, the movement of the lips or the tongue to make a sound. So if it was A, you'd go, and don't even bother saying a sound, because there's some people who can't coordinate the correct gesture of how to produce the sound with the voice yet. There's some people that can't coordinate those two. So you make it even simpler. You can make it even simpler. Even the vowel you can make simpler just by saying, can you do this? Or E, can you do this? Or A, can you do this? Can you go like ow? Can you go? And they're going to look at you like you're crazy, but sit about 3 feet in front of them. So when you're going to learn how to stimulate speech, you want to sit about, in the beginning, you want to sit about 3 feet in front of them. And you want them to see you always. They got to see your teeth. They got to see your eyes. You've got to be on the same level as they are. And if they can imitate a vowel, or if they can imitate a syllable, or they can imitate a number, or a letter, or a day of the week, that's good. Okay? All right. Well, that's about all I got for you tonight. No, I got 2 more pages of stuff to do. But I hope that I hope everybody has been I hope everybody's been enjoying and learning, and that I hope you'll give us lots of feedback. Okay. And one of the things I'm going to ask each one of you is I'm going to ask you to, if you liked it, besides just the heart now, just type something in there. Just, if you would, just type something in there. Just say good job, or just say I like it, because Facebook really likes that when people make a comment. So if you can make a comment, that would be great. Would really, really like that. And here's the thing I'm also going to ask you to do. I don't ask very much to do these things. I mean, I spend a lot of time preparing and all of that, but I don't really spend a lot of time. But I do. Share the video with somebody, or share this with someone that you know who has aphasia, or if you're a member of an aphasia group, after we're done, put a little blurb in there, or take the link and share this with them, because there are so many people who've really got their heads in the wrong place, and people who could really do so much with their loved one. They could do so much with their loved one, but for some reason they've got their head in the bag. And when you have your head in your bag, you can't do anything. And there's so much that can be done, okay? And you can learn a ton of stuff. And you'll learn a ton of stuff with me, okay? Let's see if there's any questions and comments. Let's see. Loved it. Very interesting and informative. Thank you for these classes. Good job. Good. I didn't see you all. Can I see it again? Yeah, you can see it again. Right after we're done, it's going to be up on Facebook on this page. So please share this. Share it with a bunch of people. You know how many people viewed the first video? Anybody know? It was like 12,000. Can you believe that? 12,000 people. Oh my goodness. But there are people just like you out there who have no clue about what they can do for their loved one. And that's why I made a commitment when I left full-time hospital work that I was going to make sure that there was going to be nobody on this planet who could give an excuse that said, it was the insurance company, it was national health care, it's all their fault if they, I know that, but I didn't want to hear any more of that stuff. I figured I knew what I could share with people, and that they could do a lot. They could help their loved ones speak. I mean, you all did it already with your kids. You all learned. You all learned how to help them talk, and you did. And you can do it this way, too. It's a little different. So, hey, I got a big surprise for you. Don't go yet. I got a big surprise. Don't go yet. I got a big surprise. Big surprise. Tomorrow morning, I have a wonderful woman who I'm going to interview in class, and I hope you're all going to be there. And she's a care partner or a caregiver or a wife or whatever we're going to call her. And she's been stimulating her husband to talk for 3 years. 3 years I've worked with her. And she's almost as good as I am. I mean, she's good. All right. And she's going to come. And she's going to tell you her story. And she's going to tell you about our work together. And she's going to tell you what it takes. Because, it's one thing me telling you what it takes. But, when you hear it from the horse's mouth, when you hear it from a compadre or an amigo or an amiga or a compadre or whatever they call them, okay? So my friend Deb is going to come, and she's going to share with you all about learning how to help her loved one talk and the work that she's done with him. And then what I'm going to do is a real surprise. A little bit later in the class is I'm going to have them come to class, and I'm going to have them talking with each other and maybe me in a conversation. And she's going to be using the teaching of talking method. And you're going to hear a wonderful conversation about all kinds of great things, about drinking beer, about his favorite kind of beer, about his favorite kind of food, and he loves pizza. He loves his grandkids. I mean, you're going to hear, it's just a great, every conversation that we have in speech therapy, I don't care at what level it is fun, it's informative, and very beneficial. So please like this page, share this page, come visit our website at teachingoftalking.com. Take a look around there, and just know that I send my love to each and every one of you. And I'm really serious about this. I send my love to each and every one of you because I'm sharing my energy with you. And you can tell I'm sharing my energy with you. And I share my energy with you because that's another way to help a person learn. You got to have energy, and you got to share that energy. And that's another thing you're going to need to learn and know as you learn how to help your loved one speak better. So Deb is going to be with us tomorrow morning at 8:30. And if you can't make it, the interview will be on Facebook. And I want to tell you one other thing, and that is that we're changing the class time to 6 o'clock. I got home last night. Would you believe this? I got home at 7 o'clock, and I looked out there, and it was getting dark. The sun was already going down behind the trees. And it wasn't like that. I mean, before that, it was like 9 o'clock before it was getting dark. So it's changing. So just know this, too, that on Tuesday and Thursday, the class is going to change to 6 o'clock, and 6 o'clock starts this Thursday. So make a note of that. And tomorrow morning, we're going to meet with Deb. We're going to go to the next unit of these classes, which is about caregivers and about what it takes. Okay? So I send you all my love. Mwah. And we'll see you soon. And if you can't make the class, well, catch us on the replay, okay? This is Mark Ittleman, speech language pathologist, a guy with 45 years of experience under his belt, wishing you a wonderful night. Sleep tight. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody.